Okay. So in today's class, I'm going to start with some bit operation. So let's. Okay. So let's start with an integer d that is initialized to 10. Printing value of d is d. Compile. Okay. So the value of d is 10. Now suppose I am shifting d by 2 bits to the left. Okay, this operator means shift left. Okay, left shifting operator. Okay, so I'm shifting d 2 bits to the left. All right, so this is left shifting operator, this is right shifting operator. Okay, so this means d is left shifted by 2 bits, this means d is right shifted by 2 bits. I mean, if I would have written this, that means d is right shifted by 2 bits. Okay. All right. So what will happen if I shift d by 2 bits to the left? What happens if you shift a number by 2 bit to the left? What happens to its value?
It gets multiplied by 2.
Multiplied by 2. Yes, that's correct. So let me just quickly revise this idea if any of you do not know this. So let's take the example of 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 1. Okay, so here what is the value? Suppose this is the binary representation of a number, so what is the value of this binary number? It is 1, right? Now if I move this 1 bit to the left, then what will be the number? 0 0 0 0 1 0, right? So what is the value of 0 0 0 0 1 0? It is 2, right? Again, if I move it 1 bit to the left, so it is 0 0 0 1 0 0, right? So what is the value? It is going to be 4. 1 bit, another 1 bit to the left, it is going to be 8, right? 1 bit to the left, it is going to be 16. Okay, 0 1 2 3 4, 2 to the power 4 is 16. Another bit to the left, it is going to be 2 to the power 5, 2 to the power 5 is 32. Clear? So if I shift a number by 1 bit to the left, it is going to be multiplied by 2. All right, and in the reverse direction, if I take a number and then do right shift by 1 bit, then it is going to be equivalent to divided by 2. Okay, so left shifting operator means it is multiplied by 2, right shifting operator means it is divided by 2. Okay, now notice that this division is happening in the integer domain. Clear? For example, if you starting with a number 5, 5 by 2 is going to be 2.5, but in the integer domain it is going to only give you the integer part. All right, so if you start with number 5 1 0 1, so this is going to be 5. If you divide this by 2, or if you right shift by 1 bit, then this one is going to I mean, this leftmost or rightmost one is not going to have any effect. This one will come here. So 0 0 0 0 1 0. All right. This 0 will come here. This one will come here. So ultimately, we will get 2. Right. So instead of 2.5, we will get 2 because this is going to be integer division. All right, this is going to be only integer division. All right, so then if I left shift d by 2, I'm basically multiplying by 4. Okay, left shifting by 1 bit will make it 20, left shifting by 2 bits will make it 40. Okay, new value of d is 20. Okay, left shift by 1 bit will make it 20, 2 bits is going to make it 40, 3 bits will make it 80, and in this one. Right. Let me make it right bit, right shift by 1 bit. So if I move it to the right, then that is equivalent to divided by 2, so it will be 5. All right. Now let's take another integer, say int e is equal to say 2. Okay. So now suppose I want to do bitwise AND. Okay. So the bitwise AND of d and e is d and e. Okay. D ampersand e means bitwise AND. Alright. So it is showing as 0. So let's see. So currently the value of d is 5. So 0 0. So 0 0 0 1 0 1, and 2 is 0 0 0 0 1 0. Okay. So if you take bitwise AND, you will see that all the bits are going to be 0. So that's how it is showing as 0. Correct? Clear? If you do bitwise OR, you need to use bitwise OR operator, and in that case it is showing as 7. Why 7? Let's see. 0 or 1 is 1, 1 or 1 is 1, and 0 or 1 is 1. So that means you will get, if you take bitwise OR, you will get 0 0 0 1 1 1. So 1 1 1 is indeed 7, right? Bitwise XOR, what is going to be the value of bitwise XOR of both? Bitwise XOR can be represented using this notation, D XOR E. Okay, using this notation. So what is going to be the answer to this question? In this case, it is going to be same as, because 0 XOR 1 is 1, 1 XOR 0 is 1, 0 XOR 1 is 1. So in this case, this is going to be exactly same. Okay, let's take a different example, say 4. Okay, 4 means instead of 2, I am making it 4. So in that case, this is going to be, the AND is going to be 4, because this place is going to be 0 0 1. That means it is going to be 4. OR is going to be 1 0 1. So 1 0 1 is 5, and XOR is going to be 1 0 1. XOR 1 is also 0. Okay, XOR is going to be 1 if either one of the two propositions are true. If both are true and both are false, then it is going to be false. So that means it is going to be 1. Okay, so now let's use this to solve the problem. All right, so suppose I want to write a function that is going to take the integers and then print it in a corresponding binary format. Okay. So I'm going to write a program that is going to take an integer in a decimal format, and then it is going to print it in a binary format. Yeah. Okay. So let's initialize an integer. It's f equal to say 10. Yeah. What is the binary representation of 10? Can anyone tell me quickly? It is 1010. Okay. So let's write a program that is going to convert it to binary. Okay, so print bits of f. Let's write this function. So this function is going to return void, and it is going to take an integer. So void, so make some space so that it will be easier for you to see. Print bits, print f. Let's use the function prototype. Okay, so here for the sake of simplicity, I am only printing the last 8 bits. Okay, integer will take enter 32 bit. For the sake of simplicity, I am not showing the 32 bit, but the last 8 bits. Okay, so let me write the program first. Then I'm going to ask you whether you can interpret this or not. If not, I'm going to explain. As I said that I'm going to concentrate on the last 8 bits only. Okay, so I'm just varying I from 0 to 8. If bitwise and 128 is true, printing character 1, else character 0. Then I am doing left shifting by 1 position. Okay, all right. So here, if you notice, I have used two bitwise operator, bitwise and left shifting. Okay, I'm going to explain this in a minute. Let me first run this and check whether it is indeed running or not. Okay, so it is showing 00001010. Okay, so it is indeed giving the binary representation of 10. Okay, let's make it a little bit nice. The binary representation of is okay, so 00001010. So it is indeed representing 10. Alright, can anyone tell me what's happening within these few lines? If not, that I can explain. So here I have shown you that I've already told you that I am representing the last 8 bits. Okay, thus last 8 bit is represented. Okay. So each one of this iteration I am basically printing one of the 8 bits. Alright, but now what's happening in these few lines? So what is 128? 128 means 2 to the power how much? 2 to the power 7,
8
right?
or 7. 7.
Yeah, 2 to the power 7. So that means if we represent 128 in binary format, what is going to be the binary representation of 128? 120 is 2 to the power 7. That means only in the 7th position you will have 1. All the other remaining positions are going to be 0. Right? Then only you will get 2 to the power 7, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So 128 means the 7th position is going to be 1. Other remaining 7 positions are going to be 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That means you will get 2 to the 7. 2 to the 7 is 128. Okay. Alright. So let's see what's happening. So here my f is 10. Okay. So let me represent only the last 8 bit. So it is 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0. Okay. So I want to see this binary representation. Whenever I am writing f equal to 10, f equal to 10, that means, sorry, that means in the memory space, in the memory location, wherever f is stored, this is stored, this value is basically stored, right? In the memory location, everything is binary. That means this value is stored in the memory. Suppose, or I'm concentrating on only the last 8 bits. Okay. So there, this 00001010 is stored. Now, right now, I do not know what is the value, what is the binary representation, but I want to fetch these bits in this format from the memory. Clear? Okay. So for doing that, I am doing bitwise AND with 128. Okay. So let me represent 128. 128, as I said, in the 7th position. Okay, if I say that this is 0th bit position, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. In the 7th position, you will get 1. All the remaining positions are going to be 0. That is the binary representation of 128. Okay. Now I am doing F bitwise AND 128. So if I do bitwise AND, what's happening? This is going to be 1 and 0 is 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Okay. So let's try to understand why I am ANDing it with 128. 128 means this place is 1, all the remaining places are 0s. So basically, I am testing whether this place is 1 or not. If this place is 1, then this number is going to be non-zero. If this place is 0, then irrespective of whatever is there in the remaining places, this number is going to be 0. Okay, because I'm ANDing with 1 and all zeros. That means if this place is 0, then irrespective of whatever is there in the other places, this number is going to be 0. And if this place is 1, then irrespective of whatever is there in the other places, this number is going to be 1 followed by all zeros. That means this number is going to be non-zero. Clear? So basically, this 128 ANDing with 128 is testing whether this particular position is 1 or 0. Clear? Okay. So here I have written F and 128 inside if. What does this mean? This means that if I write this means that if this is equivalent to writing if F and 128 is not equal to 0. Okay. Just writing F and 120 means if F and 120 is true. That means it is not equal to 0. Clear? This were equivalent. Alright. If I run this is going to give you the same answer. Alright. So basically I am checking whether F and 120 is not 0. If it is not 0, then I am going to print 1. Otherwise I am going to print 0. So here in the first iteration, this is 0. That means I am going to print 0 over here. Okay. So let's print 0. Clear? Next, and we can see that this bit position is indeed 0. Clear? Okay. In the next iteration, I am shifting F by 1 bit to the right. That means this bit is going to go here. This bit is going to go here. This bit will be shifted by 1, so it is going to go here. This 1 will go here. This 0 will go here. This 1 will go here, and this 0 will go here. Okay. All right. So if this 0 will go here, it will be 0. This 0 will go here, it will be 0. This will go here, it will be 0. So now let's move this 1 to here, this 0 to here, this 1 to here, this 0 to here, and then remaining place is going to be 0. Okay. And then let's do the same bitwise AND. Here also I will get 0. Clear? So let's print 0. In the next iteration, I'm going to again shift F by 1 bit to the left. So this 0 will go here, this will go here, this 1 will come here, this 0 will come here, this 1 will come here, this 0 will come here, and in this one. Again, I am doing bitwise AND. It is going to be again 0. In the next iteration, I'm again shifting F by 1 bit to the left. So this 0 will come here, this 1 will come here, this 0 will come here, this 1 will come here, this 0 will come here. All the remaining bits are going to be 0. Again, I am going to get all zeros. So 0 is going to be printed. In the next iteration, I'm going to again move f to 1 bit to the left. So this one will come here, this 0 will come here, this one will come here, this 0 will come here. Now if I do bitwise AND, it is going to be 1 followed by all zeros. That means f and 120 is not equal to 0. So in that case, 1 is going to be printed. So here I am printing 1. And here you can see that this bit position is 1. Alright, that's how I am getting 1. Next, I'll do the same process. So this 0 will come here, this 1 will come here, this 0 will come here. Again, if I do bitwise AND, I'm going to get all zeros. So I'm going to print 0. In the next iteration, this 1 will come here, this 0 will come here. Again, I'm going to do bitwise AND. I will get 1 followed by all zeros. So I'll get not equal to 0. Condition is going to be true. So 1 is going to be printed. The next iteration, I'm again going to do another level of shifting. So this 0 will come here. All the remaining bits are going to be 0. So I'll get all zeros. So 0 is going to be printed. Okay. All right. So after the end of 8 iteration, you are going to get 8 bits. All right. And they are going to be 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0. Okay. So the logic behind this is that at every iteration, I'm basically going to check whether this bit position is 0 or 1. All right.
The part where you're shifting F, is that within the loop?
Sorry.
Like the F equals F shift 1, is that within the for loop?
Yeah, it is within the loop, right?
Oh, okay. I didn't know if it had to be indented or not, like other languages.
Yeah, in C you would not need to. I mean, indentation is not important. If you do it, yeah, for your convenience, yeah, that's fine. Okay.
Gotcha.
If it is within the brace, then it is within the loop.
Oh, right. Yeah, the braces. Okay, sorry.
Okay. So if this logic is correct, then I can change the value of f, and we'll see whether it is working for other values or not. So let's make it 100. Okay. So here it is showing 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0. So I don't know the binary notation of 100. Let me check quickly. So decimal to binary. If I make it 100, it is going to be 1100 So 1100 as I am printing 8 bits, I got 10 in the front. Okay. Similarly, if I make it 200, it is showing us 1100. So let's make it 200. You will see it is exactly same as this number 1100. Clear? So if the logic is correct, if it works for one number, it should work for any other numbers. Okay. And here I have shown you in the last 8-bit representation. Okay. If you want to use bigger number, all right, that cannot be accommodated in 8 bits, you may need to use 16-bit or 32-bit. But that is just the change of this number of bits and 2 to the power that much. Okay. So if you want to make it 32, it is going to be 2 to the power 32. Clear? Okay. So this is one way you can convert from decimal to binary, or you can convert, or you can represent the binary representation of a decimal number. Okay. And this is one way. Okay. Right now we have learned different bit operations. So I've shown you how to use bit operation to represent a decimal number to binary notation. Okay. There are some other ways also. As we are going to make progress, we're going to learn other techniques, and at that point I'm going to show you. Clear? This is one of the way where you can use bit operation to represent a decimal number to its binary form. This is not the only way, there are other ways also. Okay. Okay. So next small point that I want to make is, or small topic that I want to cover is type conversion. So type conversion, as the name suggests, we have learned different data types. Okay, but suppose we are trying to run some statements that consist of different types of data types. For example, in a single statement, you have integer, float, double, character. So then sometimes you need to do type conversion. Okay, so let's some example. Say int I equal to say 15, character C equal to say A, and then I am writing float F equal to I plus C. Then I am printing the value of F is percentage. Can anyone tell me what is going to be the answer to this question, or answer to what is going to be the output of this statement? Let's run it.
Will it be 15 plus the character value of A?
Yes, that's true. So it is showing us 112.0000000. Okay. So what is 112? It is supposed to be 15 plus the ASCII value of A, right? Because I am adding C. C means it is going to add the ASCII value of A. So ASCII value of A is 97. All right. So 97 plus 15 is 112. Okay. So what's happening? Here I am adding a character with an integer and storing it in a float variable. Okay. So that means these are added and then it is converted to float and stored in F. So here also a type conversion is happening, but it is implicit type conversion. Okay, this is implicit type conversion. Clear? I am not explicitly defining that convert the addition to a float. I am not explicitly defining it. Similarly, if I write say float E equal to I plus 1.0, and then I am printing the value of E is percentage. Okay, here also it is going to print 16.000. Okay, so here this is an integer, it is added with a float and the cumulative value is converted to a float and stored in E. Okay, so here also one implicit type conversion is happening. Clear? But in all the cases this implicit type conversion is not going to happen. All right, so let's take an example. So that's how we need to be careful whenever you are dealing with different types of variables. Sometimes this implicit type conversion is going to happen, but it's not going to happen all the time. So let's take an example. Say suppose a bookseller is selling some books. So within a week he has sold say 10 pieces of the book, and in each of these book is going to give him say $59 of profit. So on an average, what is his profit per day? Okay, but let's try to find that. Say the total number of books that he has sold in a week is 10. Okay, or let's make it 100. And profit per book, say $59. And the number of days he has sold is 7. So what is the average profit per day? What is his average profit per day? So average profit is number of books multiplied by profit per book divided by days. Okay, and then I can write that the average profit per day is So let's see. Here it is showing that average profit per day is 482.00000. Okay. So let's try to calculate. 59 into 100 is 5900 by 7. So 5900 by 7 is, so it is going to be 842.85714. 842 point something. Instead of writing, instead of printing 842 point something, it is only printing 842.00000. Okay. So why this is happening? Because this is an integer, this is an integer, so this entire thing is an integer, and I am dividing this by an integer. So that means this entire statement is giving the integer part of the answer. That's why I'm getting, instead of 842.857, I'm getting 842 point something, 842.000. So integer by integer division is only giving the integer portion of the answer. So to get the correct answer, I need to do a type conversion. I need to write float over here. If I write this, I'm going to get 842.857117. Okay, so now I'm getting the correct output or precise output. Okay, so this is not implicit, this is explicit type conversion. Okay. And explicitly defining that convert days to float and then do the division. So this is explicit type conversion. Yeah. So the next topic that we are going to learn is different storage specifier. Okay, I'm going to come the details in a minute. So till now we have learned different types of variables, integer, floating point, double, and all those things. Okay, let's concentrate on the integer part. So now we are going to see that integer can be, or before, in front of integer, you can use different storage specifier. Like you can write auto int, extern int, static int, register int. Okay? And based on these keywords, that integer is going to behave differently, or that integer will have different properties. Okay, so let's try to understand these properties using an example. And these properties are going to vary based on where the integer is going to be stored, what is going to be its initial value by default, what is its scope, what is its life. Okay, all right, so let's take an example, then only it will be clearer, and then I'm going to match the property with whatever is written in this table. All right, let's start with auto variable. So suppose I am writing d, integer d equal to 100. I am printing the value of d is %d. Okay, so it is going to print value of d is 100. All right, so the first type is, the first storage specifier in this table is auto variable. So let's start with auto variable. So if you do not write anything in front of integer, by default it is going to be auto variable. Okay, if you do not write anything, by default it is going to be an auto variable. All right, so you can either write auto int, otherwise you can write int. Okay, both are going to run, both are equivalent. Auto int is equivalent to int. If you do not write anything in front of int, by default the compiler will consider this as auto variable. Right? Okay, Now let's understand what is the properties of auto variable. And also notice that auto is marked in green. That means auto is a valid keyword. Right? Okay. So while describing these properties, one of the terminology that is used over here is block. Within block, at the end of block. So first, let's try to understand what block is. So block is basically two curly braces. Okay, block is two curly braces. That means this is also this main is also block. Okay. In addition to that, I can also create any block inside the program by writing two curly braces. Okay, this is one block inside another block. All right. Here, if I write auto int b is equal to say 500, and I am writing the value of b is percent. Okay. If I run this, is it going to give any warning or error? What do you think?
No, because if they have different scopes. Like one is within, because one's within one block and one's within a separate one, they have different scope.
So it is not giving any error, it is working perfectly. All right. But you can see that here in this line it is printing 500. Okay. So basically the scope of this D is inside this block. Okay. That is basically written in this table. The scope of an auto variable is within that block, and the life is till the end of the block. What does this mean? Suppose I print this at the end of the block. What is going to be the output?
100.
What's going to be the output?
100.
100, right? So 100, 500, 100. Because based on the table, the lifetime of an auto variable is till the end of the block. Okay, that means at the end of this block, the life of this auto variable is going to expire. So here D is going to take the value 100. Okay. So 100, 500, 100. Okay. Now notice that if I do not put these two curly braces, in that case it is going to give me an error, because this is going to give an error redefinition of D, because I have defined D over here, and I am also defined D over here. Okay. But if I use these two curly braces, that means this will be considered as a separate block, and inside that block I can use the same variable name. Inside this block I can use the same variable name, and within this block if I declare a variable D, then this value is going to prevail within this block. Okay. If I do not define anything, then it is going to take the value that is defined outside. 100, 100, 100. Okay. So this is about auto variable. And instead of writing auto, as I said, that if I do not write auto, by default it will be considered as auto variable. So it is going to behave exactly same as the auto variable. Okay. Okay. So the scope and life is clear. Initial value by default is going to be garbage. So if you do not initialize the auto variable, by default it is going to be garbage. It is stored inside stack. So for the time being, do not need to differentiate between stack and data segment. Okay, stack and data segment both are part of the memory. Okay, so it is stored in memory. Okay, integer is stored in memory. Initial value by default is garbage. Scope is within the block. Life is till the end of the block. Okay. All right. So that's all about auto variable, auto storage basically. Now let's come to the next type of storage specifier, which is extern. What is extern storage specifier? So extern specifier deals with only global variable. We have learned global variable and local variable, right? Local variable means that is local to that function. Global variable means the life will be till the end of the, or the its life is throughout the course of the program, right? So external specifier deals with global variable. So let's take an example. Say int I equal to 100. So this is a global variable. And now I am writing a function that is going to double the value of I. Okay. So here I am writing the function double I. Here I am doubling it. And then I am printing the value of I is B. Let's declare the function prototype. Alright. So if I run this program, it is giving me the value of I is 200 because 100 is double. So everything is fine. Okay. Now, suppose I am declaring the same variable. I am basically writing the same line, but instead of writing over here, I am writing it over here. Instead of writing here, I am writing the same line over here. Okay. So here also conceptually, this will not be a problem because I is indeed declared in a global space. So I is a global variable. Okay. Conceptually, it shouldn't give any problem. But if you run this, it is going to give an error I undeclared in line 25. Okay. So in line 25, you'll see that there is an error. And the error is I undeclared. So here, whenever the compiler is reading the program, whenever it is encountering this line, it has no idea what I is. That's how it is throwing this error. Clear? But I have declared I in a global space, but this is after this statement. That's how it is raising this error. Clear? Now, so to avoid this, we use extern keyword. Okay. You'll see extern. If you write extern, it is going to show you in green. That means it's a valid keyword. So you just write extern int I. That means it is telling the compiler that I is declared in a global space somewhere. Okay, I is somewhere declared in a global space. So do not consider this as an error. Okay, if I run this, the error can be got rid of. Okay, and if I run this, this is going to work as it is. Clear? So this extern keyword is telling the compiler that I is indeed declared in a global space. Okay, so this is a definition. Okay, this is basically a declaration. It is declaring that I is an integer. Here it is defining that I is defined in an external in a global space. Okay, so this is a declaration. This is a definition. This is not a declaration. This is not declaring that I is an integer. It is only saying that I is declared in a global space. Okay. So why it is not a definition? Because why it is not a declaration? How you can check whether it is not a declaration. Suppose you remove this line. Okay. So if you remove this line, it is going to give an error undefined reference to I. Okay, but if you remove this external keyword, it should work as it is. Okay, it should work as it is. It is not initialized to 100, but it should work as it is. So that means int I is a declaration. It is declaring it, so it will run properly. If you write external keyword, it is not a declaration. It is not going to run properly. Okay. Extend keyword is a definition. It is only defining that I is declared in a global space somewhere in the program. Okay. Okay. So if you come to this table, you will see that extern word is stored in data segment, which I said as memory. By default, its initial value is 0. Okay. The scope is global and it is across multiple files. So till now I have written everything in one file, but suppose your program is few thousands of lines long. In that case, you cannot write a program inside one file. You need to write multiple files and then you need to link multiple files while compiling it. Okay. I'm going to show this later on. Okay. But a global variable, the scope is throughout the course of the program. So it will be, the scope is across multiple files. All right. And the life is till the end of the program, because as it's a global variable, its lifetime is going to be till the end of the program. Clear? Okay. So that's all about extern variable. Okay. All right. Now let's come to the next type of storage specifier, which is static. Okay. So static storage specifier. Let me get rid of these functions. Okay, static storage specifier. So let's see, what does this mean? So suppose I'm reusing the same function, say double. Okay, and inside double, write down the function double void. So here I'm going to initialize one variable I equal to say 100, and then I'm going to do I equal to I multiplied by 2, and then I'm printing the value of I is percent. And I'm just using this as a prototype. Okay. Now, if I run this, it is going to give the value of I is 200, because it initialized 200 multiplied by 2, and it is printed over here. So everything is fine. Now suppose I'm writing it, or I'm repeating the same function 5 times. So what is going to be the output of I?
Isn't it going to be 200?
200 in all these 5 cases, right?
Yeah,
Okay. And why it is 200? Go ahead.
because every time you would just declare it again and again 200
Okay.
in the beginning of it when we call it.
Okay, fine. So yeah, let me describe it in a little bit better way. So here I said int I. Int I means, as I said, by default, it is going to be considered as auto variable, right? And what is the property of auto variable? Its scope is within the block. Its lifetime is till the end of the block. Clear? So its scope is within the block, but its lifetime is till the end of the block. Here block is these two curly braces. Okay. So after the end of this block, its lifetime is going to expire. Next, whenever you are calling this for the next time, it will be reinitialized to 100 multiplied by 2 printed. And then after the end of this block, its lifetime is going to expire. Next, in the next call, it is going to be again reinitialized, doubled, and printed. Okay. So as this is an auto variable, its lifetime is getting expired after the end of this block. Clear? Okay. Now, suppose I want to retain this value. That means first I have doubled, I want to retain this modified value, so that whenever I'm going to call this next time, I will use the modified value. Okay, so I want to retain the value that I have modified. I do not want this variable to expire till the end of the at the end of the block. All right, I don't want this variable to expire at the end of the block. First I have doubled this, so I want to retain this value, and then whenever I'm going to come next, I want to reuse the value and then double it on top of that. Basically, I want to get the output 100, 200, 400, 800, 1600. Okay, I want to retain the value. So how can I do so? I can ensure this using the static keyword. Okay, so if I use the static keyword and run this program, I'm going to see that 200, 400, 800, 1600, 3200. Okay, I just changed from integer to static int, and by changing this, I have basically asked the compiler that I want to store this in a static integer fashion. And what is the property of static? Static, the difference between static and other variables is that its lifetime is till the end of the program. Okay, but it is not same as extern because its scope is not global. Okay, I do not want to declare this as a global variable. If I declare this as a global variable, then yes, obviously this change will be reflected. But I do not want to declare this as a global variable. I want to limit the scope within the block, but still I want to make the lifetime till the end of the program. Okay, so because of this property, whenever I'm going to modify this value, this modified value is going to be retained instead of getting expired at the end of the block. Okay, and as usual, this is stored in memory. Okay, so all these three variables are going to store in memory. Okay, the last one is register variable. So let's see what register variable is. Okay, so suppose you have declared an integer I equal to say 100, and then you are doing I plus plus I equal to I plus 1000, I equal to I multiplied by 500, I equal to I divided by 42, okay, I equal to I minus 890, something like that. Okay, so that means you are reusing I again and again and again in the consecutive lines. You have initialized I to 100, and then you are using I again and again and again and again. Okay, so what's happening in the low level? Let's try to understand. When you reuse the variable again, you reuse the same variable again and again and again. Okay, so let's get into a little bit of low level details. All right, so in the previous statement or in the previous program, what I have written is int I equal to 100, then I is incremented by 1, then I is incremented by 1000, then I is multiplied by 500, then I is divided by some other numbers, then I is subtracted by some other number, things like that. Okay, so basically I am reusing I again and again and again and again in the following statement. So what's happening? Okay, so by default, as I said, that these are auto variable. Auto variable is going to be stored in memory, right? So here I have shown you the architecture of your CPU, where you have main memory. Okay, you have your main memory or RAM, where your variable I is stored. Okay, so I is equal to 100 was initially stored inside your main memory. Now, in your computing system, whenever you run a program, which part of the system processes this instruction? This is your processor or CPU, right? Your variables are stored inside your memory because these are auto variable, and your processor takes these values from the memory and then do the processing and then write it back, right? So for example, suppose you are running this increment operation. You are incrementing I by 1. Okay, so what will happen? This CPU will fetch this value I equal to 100 from the memory, store it in some register. Okay, here I equal to 100, and then this ALU, which is arithmetic and logical unit. Okay, this does all kinds of arithmetic and logical operation. This will do this arithmetic operation where it is going to increment the value of I from 100 to 101, and then store the value back into the memory. So this 101 is going to be stored. Clear? Next, when you are incrementing again I by 1000, that means this 101 is going to be again fetched from the memory to the register. It will be incremented by 1000, and then it is again going to be stored back to the memory. Next, you are multiplying I by 500. That means this value, modified value, is going to be again fetched from memory to the register, multiplied, and then it is going to be stored back. All right. So what is the problem of this kind of mechanism?
Because we're sending it back and forth too much.
Yes. So basically, you are using the same variable, but for that you are again reading it from the memory and writing it back, and all this takes some latency because it is going through the buses, stored it, you are reading it from the memory. So all these operations takes some overhead, right? So there are some latency involved. Clear? Now, to get rid of this, there is a keyword that are used inside int is called register int. Okay, you can write register int I equal to 100. What will happen if you write this? What will happen is that this, instead of storing this in this I inside the memory, it will be stored inside one of the registers. If some register is available, okay, there are some only a limited number of registers. So if there is some available registers inside CPU, then instead of storing this I to M as I to the memory, it will be stored in one of the registers. Clear? If any register is available. If it is not available, then it will be stored in the memory only. If it is available, then one of the register can store the value of I. So in that case, you do not need to go back and forth. Okay? The CPU can easily work on it several times. Clear? As many times as it wants. So if a variable is reused again and again and again, you can declare this as register integer. Okay. Now that does not guarantee that this variable is going to be stored inside the register. As I said, if there is availability, okay, CPU uses registers for many other purposes. So if there is sufficient availability, then only it will be stored inside the register. Otherwise, even if you declare this as a register variable, if there is no availability, it will be stored inside the memory. So here, instead of integer, you can write register int. You will see register is also a valid keyword. That's how it is giving green signal. All right. So in that case, as I said, if there is available register, if there is vacant register, then only it will be stored inside the register. So you do not need to go back and forth to the memory. Okay. Otherwise, it will be stored in the memory, so it will be used as a normal array. So let's come to this table. You will see that register, the storage is CPU register. Okay. The only difference between register and auto is it is stored inside memory. However, register variable is going to be stored inside the CPU register. All the other points are exactly the same as auto variable. There is no difference. All the properties of auto variable will be applied here only, except where it will be stored. Okay.